want to talk about connecting RCA adapters to your tattoo machines. Before we get started, I would like to thank the American Academy of CPR and First Aid for having a bloodborne pathogens course that I could do online, and it was cheaper than most of the other courses and it didn't take as long. On this channel we are always trying to do the right thing when it comes to tattooing and making sure everybody tattoos safely and just does things correctly. And the best way to legally tattoo is to get into a shop, unless you live in a place where that's not required. But where I live, in order to tattoo legally, you have to be in a shop where they can regulate you and keep an eye on what you're doing and making sure that you are tattooing safely and that you are being sanitary. So I encourage everybody to take this course. Even if you don't pay for the certificate, you can still go through the course. It's a free course. You just pay for the certificate if you need it. So that's the American Academy of CPR and First Aid. I would go check them out. Learn some things about bloodborne pathogens and how to keep yourself safe and how to keep other people safe. So because I am going to be in a shop in the public eye, I want to put my best foot forward. So some of these cords I have that I've pieced together, and they're made out of radio wire and they just look really cheap. I don't want to use those in a shop, and it's going to make me look really bad. So I'm going to go ahead and make the conversion over to the RCA system on all my machines. With the RCA, you're supposed to get a better connection. You're not supposed to have to use as much voltage on your machines, and you can see this looks a lot better and a lot more professional than something like this. So what I'm going to do on my machines is I'm actually going to make it so that you can use the clip cord if you need to, but at the same time you're going to have the RCA connection here so that you can use both. Just in case, let's say I don't have an RCA clip cord and I need to borrow a regular clip cord, or let's say I sell this machine to somebody and they only use clip cords instead of the RCA. So it's better to put both of them on there than to just have one if you're trying to make sure this is universal for everyone. So instead of taking this off and just putting this on, I'm going to leave both of them on there. But I'm going to adjust this also so that it's better for the clip cord. One of the things I don't like about this system here on these rotaries especially is that they put this in here, and if your clip cord's not tight enough, you lose connection. It moves around real easy, not a real good fit in there. And plus this just looks like nickel plated or a plated screw. Not the best for conducting electricity. So I'm going to switch this out and show you guys how to make this a better connection if you are still going to use your clip cord. You can see that some companies are getting smart already, and they're doing things like this on their machines. So this already has an RCA connection there. If you're using RCA, or if you are using a regular clip cord, it would go into there. And I just got this machine, and you can see there's already kind of a problem here with that fitting in there correctly. So already an issue with the clip cord versus the RCA, so that's something to think about. And there are some machines that are easier to switch to RCA than other machines. With this machine, it's a change out of the connections here. You can see the positive and the ground wire right here that go to the motor. And so with a RCA adapter, the outside is the ground and the wire is your positive. So we just have to hook this up accordingly, having our positive to our positive and then our ground on there. And that's easy to do because of the way the machine is set up. Everything is on the outside, but you can see on machines like this, where you only have a clip cord connection and then all of your wiring is encased inside of the machine casing here, you're gonna have to get a little more creative and take these apart to get an RCA connection on these, but that'll be for a later video. Today I will just focus on attaching these adapters. Now, I don't really like how thin this wire is, but because of the time frame I have, I'm just going to hook these up, and if I have to make some changes, I'll do those later. But for now, I'll just use what I have here. So on a traditional coil machine, you usually just have these set up for a clip cord. But you can put an RCA adapter on there, and you usually have these posts that your clip cord goes into, or you have a post in the back, a rear post, and then this hole here where your clip cord goes into the rear deck. But on this one you have these posts on the side where your clip cord connects to. Now, again, with the clip cord, and problems you have with the clip cord is sometimes you don't get a good connection in here, or sometimes your clip cord's a little worn out, so this is real loose and it moves around, and it's just not a real good connection, and you kind of get sputtering and your machine turning on and off. Now, I prefer these posts like this where they're closer and your clip cord fits in there really nice. But again, you kind of get a lot of movement here, and this thing's whipping around while you're tattooing, and so we're going to change that so we get a nice clean connection with the clip cord and it's not whipping around the whole time. So when it comes to clip cords, there's just more problems. Sometimes the posts are so close that you have a hard time getting these into the post, like this one here. And this one has really small hole too, so it's hard to get that in there. I would have to adjust this a little bit to make this work correctly. So there's a lot of issues with the clip cords that this RCA connection will just get rid of and make things easier for you. So right off the bat, something caught my attention, and it reminded me of something. When I was checking the direction of my capacitor, I remembered this coil machine has the negative to the rear and the positive to the front. And usually when I hook up my tattoo machines, I like to have the positive on the rear post and the negative on the front. And if you look at your capacitor here, you can see which direction it's going. And on all of my machines, I hook them up the same direction. That way the rear post is always positive. And because I did not mess with these coils yet, the rear post on this one's negative. So that's something you have to pay attention to when you are hooking up your RCA adapter, because this is your positive, and then your casing here is your ground, and that should go to your frame, or in this case, if you have a post that goes to your frame, that's where that's going to go. I like to have everything going the same direction, and this is a little frustrating because I went through and started looking at my machines. The negative on this one is the rear post. Negative on this one's the rear post also. And in order to find out about these, I'm going to have to take them apart, like this one here, which I took apart, and you can see that the positive is on top, and that is not how I like them. So if they're all different, you can't tell which way you need to hook up your clip cord. Another issue with clip cords, you can hook them up the wrong way with the RCA adapter. You just plug them in, so you don't have to worry about this issue. But with a clip cord, you have to make sure you connect your positive to positive, negative to negative. But if it's closed up like this, how are you going to tell which one's positive and negative unless you take it apart? So I like to have my positive on the bottom all the time so I don't have to think about it. But what I'm finding out is that most of these rotary machines I have are the exact opposite. So I'm going to go through all my machines here and figure out which post is positive and negative for when I'm using my clip cord. And I'm going to switch the direction of this capacitor because I don't like them going this direction. I like them going the other direction. Just makes it easier when I'm hooking everything up, so I don't have to think about which one's positive, which one's negative. And a lot of times when they cover everything up, it makes it really difficult to figure out which direction this capacitor is going. And usually you can find out which direction it's going by finding which end of the capacitor has this little crimp side, or the smaller side to it. But you can't always tell that way because people do weird stuff, companies do weird stuff, they might do it opposite. So I don't trust anything. I have to look and see which direction it's telling me it's going. I'm not just going to trust the shape of the capacitor. So we have a good connection here with this clip cord, but it still moves around and it has the chance of losing that connection or just being irritating. So usually the clip cords just sit inside of a little hole here, but you can see you have this section of the clip cord right here that if you take your Dremel tool and your little cutting wheel here, and if you make a notch a little slot in the back here, it will actually allow this piece of your clip cord to sit down in that, and it'll keep it from moving around, and you won't lose your connection as much, and it will be sturdy. You won't have all this movement here. So I'm going to take this rear post off, and I'm going to make a little notch in that so that my clip cord sits in there nice and tight. Let me show you the difference that this makes with the clip cord, and how little tiny things can make a big difference when you're tuning tattoo machines. See how this doesn't flop around anymore? It stays in one spot. That will give you a better connection with your clip cord. It's sitting in there better. It's not moving around, so you're not going to lose your connection, and it's not going to be annoying. Just by notching out your rear post a little bit, giving some room for your clip cord to fit down into there, you will save yourself a lot of headache. So I'm going to try something and see if it bugs me or not, but instead of soldering my new capacitor on there, I just cut the old one off because it was going the wrong direction. And then I'm just going to take one of my little quick connect capacitors here that I already have set up, and I'm just going to attach it to the machine like this. And I'm going to see if that bugs me or not, having two of those on there. And if it doesn't bug me, I'll leave it alone, but if not, I'll take it apart and solder everything together. But for now, I'm going to leave it like this. But I can look at the direction of my capacitor here and put it the direction I want it to go. Okay, so I had to get a little creative hooking up this tattoo machine. It's a little different. I had some issues putting it back together, so when I put my capacitor on, and it's just a quick connect capacitor, so it had two lugs on there, it would not fit back in this space. You can see on several of my machines there's this space back here where if you have anything there, you can't fit your rear coil back onto the machine. It's just real tight and snug up against this rear coil. So I couldn't add anything onto this side. So what I did was I just rerouted the wires here to the outside, to my rear post on the outside of the frame. And now you can see I have the added wire of the RCA adapter. So this machine kind of looks like a Frankenstein machine now. This is a machine I've been experimenting with a lot, so it's gone through several different changes. Doesn't even look like the same machine as when I bought it. So these adapters are kind of cheap. You know, this gauge wire isn't very thick gauge wire. Sometimes when you have too thin of a wire, especially with like your clip cords and stuff, it constricts the power that goes through there, and you have to up your voltage and stuff. So one of these days when I have some time, what I'll probably do is I'll just pull this off and solder a thicker gauge wire on here. But I checked it out, I already ran it, and it runs fine. You can see once I had my positive hooked up to my post, I just needed to hook up this adapter, the ground, to the frame, which this post right here just goes to the frame of this machine. And the way this works is you have your positive which is your cord that goes through the middle of this RCA adapter, and then the outside is the ground. And so that just needs to touch your tattoo machine. So you can see using it as a washer there, or putting it in between your washers, puts it into contact with your tattoo machine, and that's all you need to ground your machine there. It's like having the negative wire whenever you put something electrical together and you have to run that negative wire just to a piece of the metal or something like that. So now I have the clip cord connections, and you can see I've used my Dremel tool to make my clip cord fit in here better without moving around, so I get that nice good connection there. If you had a clip cord, one that puts pressure out, that separates these clip cords, that would give you an even tighter connection there. This is just a cheap clip cord, but still adjusting the post gives me a better connection, so I could run it with the clip cord here. With my positive on the bottom, I can tell it's the positive side because I have red for positive. And if I looked at my wire, I usually use the white stripe side as my positive. So now that I switched my capacitor around, I know all of my positives are on the bottom. And with my RCA adapter here, see, this will fit nice and snug around this adapter. Let me show you how this connects. So that's right there, but I have to give it a little push. I have to force it a little bit to go the entire way, because it's going to hold on to that nice and snug. In order for me to pull this off, I have to force it a little bit to come on. So push it on, and what that does is that gives me a nice tight connection with my RCA, so that I don't have any problems while I'm tattooing. And when I bought this cord, I wanted to make sure the gauge wire was a nice thick gauge wire, and it's coated so that I'm not going to be pulling it apart or damaging it. It's a very nice cord, and having it hooked up this way will help me with my voltage on my machine, and it will run better and it'll have a better connection.